I never expected to come home early. It was supposed to be a week out on the lake, just me and my brother Harris, like we did every year, our little tradition. But fate had other plans. Harris's office called him in for some emergency, and just like that, our trip was over before it even began. I could have called Alice to let her know, but the idea of surprising her felt nice. Maybe we'd take a spontaneous trip of our own, something to shake off the monotony. It had been a while since we did anything just for us. I pulled into the driveway, the warm comfort of home settling over me. I expected quiet, maybe the hum of the TV in the background. Instead, as I approached the front door, I heard something else entirely. That familiar sound no husband wants to hear. Then a moan that didn't belong to me, followed by Alice's moan. The air in my lungs froze, my fingers tightening around the doorknob. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I pushed the door open just an inch, enough to see into the living room. Alice, on the couch, with Lucas, our married neighbor. I don't know how long I stood there, seconds, minutes. The image burned into my brain. Her hands tangled in his hair, his lips on her neck. The betrayal in that moment felt like a living thing, a wildfire spreading through my veins. My first instinct was to lose it, to rip him off of her, to demand answers, to scream, to break something. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled my phone from my pocket, hands steadier than I thought they'd be, and hit record. Proof. Evidence. Because no matter what she said, no matter how many crocodile tears she shed, there would be no excuses. I let the camera roll just long enough before stepping inside, my voice cutting through their disgusting little scene. What the hell is this? Alice shot up, knocking Lucas off her like the piece of trash he was, her face draining of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Lucas scrambled away, grabbing for his shirt like that would somehow make this less damning. Henry, Alice started, her voice shaky, breathless from the act I just witnessed. I didn't let her finish. I lifted my phone, waved it slightly. Smile for the camera. She lunged forward, eyes wide in sheer panic. Henry, please, let's talk. I dodged her attempt to grab the phone, turned on my heel, and walked right out. She followed, barefoot and naked, calling my name, begging me to stop. But I didn't. Not when she sobbed. Not when she swore it wasn't what it looked like. Not when she said she could explain. Explain what? How she spread her legs for another man in our home. I got into my car and drove 2 streets over, to Lucas's house. I barely took a breath before knocking. No answer. Good. I pulled out my phone again and sent the video straight to Isabella. You need to see this. I returned to my car and stared at my screen, waiting. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Tell me this is some kind of joke. I exhaled and typed back. I wish it was. I walked in on them when I got home early. Nothing for a moment. Then, I'll handle it. No crying. No denial. Just cold, hard understanding. I tossed my phone onto the passenger seat and drove to the nearest hotel. I sat in that room, staring at the wall, sometimes watching TV, at others just trying to wrap my head around it. The woman I built a life with. The vows we exchanged. The years we spent together. None of it mattered to her. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Alice, over and over. I ignored every call, every desperate text, until the name on my screen changed. Isabella. I picked up. Her voice was quiet, controlled. So what do we do now? We walk away. And we did. We both filed for divorce the next morning. Alice still tried. She begged, she pleaded. She wanted to explain, to make it right. But there was nothing to explain. Nothing to fix. Once a cheater, always a cheater. And I wasn't about to waste my dignity or my respect on a woman who had already thrown them away. So I walked away. And I never looked back. It was a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake. That's what I told myself over and over as I sat on the edge of our bed. The same bed we used to share. The same bed I hadn't slept in since Henry walked out. He was angry. He had every right to be. But I knew my husband. He was rational, level-headed. He needed time to cool off, to process. Once the shock wore off, he'd come home. He had to. I'd explain everything. How it didn't mean anything. How I got caught up in something I didn't even understand. How lonely I had been. How I thought he was pulling away first. How Lucas was just there. It was weak. It was selfish. But it wasn't us. Not really. I had called him over and over, left voicemails he never answered, sent texts that were never read. But he needed time. A day passed. Then another. Then he filed for divorce. And suddenly, my delusions shattered like glass. Henry wasn't coming back. I sat there, staring at the cold, impersonal papers in front of me. The finality of it screamed in my face. His signature was already on them. All they needed was mine. This was real. This wasn't just a fight we'd recover from, a bad storm we'd weather. He wasn't giving me the chance to explain, to beg, to fix it. He was done. I pictured him somewhere else, living a life without me. A life where he wasn't tethered to my betrayal. A life where he could look in the mirror and not feel the weight of what I had done. And for the first time since he walked out, I truly felt what I had lost. Henry wasn't just my husband. He was my best friend, my anchor, the one person who had always chosen me, until I gave him a reason not to. And now I was just a mistake he'd never make twice. I gripped the pen with trembling fingers, and for the first time, I let myself cry. Because there was no going back.